Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Renuka and with me is R.S. Raghu bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Jagdeep Dhankar takes oath as Vice President of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi wishes him very best for fruitful tenure. UN Security Council to hold emergency meeting today on crisis at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear complex. India and Bangladesh review ongoing defense cooperation between the two countries. Mexican president proposes three-man commission for world peace comprising Prime Minister Modi, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Pope Francis. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says U.S. cannot allow China to normalize a new level of pressure on Taiwan. China shields a Pakistan-based global terrorist from United Nations sanctions despite incontrovertible evidence. Tamara Walcott from United States broke Guinness World Records in lifting 737.5 kg in 3 stages. And now the news in detail. Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar was sworn in as the 14th Vice President of India today. President Draupadi Murmu administered the oath of office to Mr. Dhankar at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, former President Ramnath Kovind, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and many union ministers were present at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Ahead of the swearing-in ceremony, Mr. Dhankar paid tribute to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at Rajghat this morning. He placed a wreath at Gandhiji's memorial and bowed before the Samadhi with folded hands. Mr. Dhankar said in the serene sublimity of Rajghat, while paying respects to Pujya Bapu, he felt blessed, inspired and motivated to be ever in service of Bharat. The UN Security Council will hold an emergency meeting today to address the crisis at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear complex. Kyiv and Moscow accuse each other of having bombed over the power plant. A diplomatic source at the United Nations headquarters in New York said the Council's 15-member nations would gather at the request of Russia. Meanwhile, heavy fighting raged around the eastern Ukrainian town of Pisky and as Russia pressed its campaign to seize all of the industrialized Donbas region. According to local media reports, an official with the Russia-backed Donetsk People's Republic said the northwest of provincial capital Donetsk was under the control of Russian and separatist forces. However, Ukrainian officials denied that the heavily fortified town, a key to the defense of Donetsk, had fallen. The Donbas region comprising Luhansk and Donetsk provinces became Moscow's main objective after it failed to seize the capital Kyiv at the start of the war in February. Luhansk is now almost completely under Russian control. However, Donetsk is still holding out.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has proposed a three-man commission comprising Prime Minister Narendra Modi, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Pope Francis for global peace. The Mexican president is planning to submit a written proposal to the UN to create the commission, made up of 3 world leaders, including PM Modi, to promote world truce for a period of 5 years. The U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said that the United States cannot allow China to normalize a new level of pressure on Taiwan as Beijing conducted military drills around the island nation. Issuing a stern warning to Beijing, Ms. Pelosi said, China is trying to establish a sort of a new normal and the U.S. just cannot let that happen. China yesterday announced ending military drills around Taiwan but asserted that it will continue regular patrols around the island nation.
In Kenya, election results are still awaited for the presidential polls. Elections were closed before 45 hours. Election head Wafula Chebukati has urged people to be patient and not to panic that media houses are releasing differing tallies. Each organization is making its own calculations based on the manual entry of data from more than 46,000 polling stations. But it is only the Electoral Commission that can declare the winner. The media tallies show that the 2 leading candidates, Raila Odinga and William Ruto, are neck and neck. The fourth India-Bangladesh Annual Defence Dialogue, co-chaired by Defence Secretary Dr. Ajay Kumar and Principal Staff Officer of Armed Forces Division of Bangladesh, Lieutenant General Waqar-uz-Zaman, was held in New Delhi today. During their interaction, they reviewed ongoing defence cooperation between the two countries and expressed satisfaction that collaboration is growing despite difficulties imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The talks covered the existing bilateral exercises and training and agreed to increase the complexity of these exercises. Both the sides reviewed the progress on various bilateral defence cooperation initiatives and expressed commitment to further elevate engagements between the armed forces. Various aspects of defence, industrial and capability building cooperation came up for detailed discussions. Both sides emphasized the need to work closely to implement the $500 million line of credit extended from India for defence items. The Defence Secretary commended the Bangladeshi side for their efforts in US peacekeeping. The armed forces of both countries continue to seek bilateral cooperation in multiple fields, and the increased engagements are a positive sign for the future of the relation of both countries. Dr. Ajay Kumar also invited the Bangladeshi delegation for the upcoming DEF Expo 2022 and stated that in the domain of defence industry, both countries have great potential of cooperation in defence, trade, co-development and joint production.
India and the United Kingdom are working intensively to conclude talks on a free trade agreement FTA by the end of October this year. Ministry of Commerce and Industry said India and the UK concluded the fifth round of talks for an FTA on the 29th of last month. In the fifth round of negotiations, technical experts from both the sides came together to discuss 15 policy areas. Presently, India is engaged in FTA negotiations with some of its trading partners, including the European Union, Canada and Israel. China assured the visiting Nepalese Foreign Minister Narayan Khadka of giving financial aid to Nepal to support the feasibility study of the China-Nepal cross-border railway, which was facing uncertainty due to internal political instability in Nepal and COVID-19. In a meeting with his Nepalese counterpart in Shandong province on Wednesday, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi announced that surveyors would be sent to Nepal to examine the feasibility of a line linking Kathmandu and the southern Tibetan city of Gyeorong. The two sides signed an agreement to cooperate on a possible railway line under China's Belt and Road Initiative BRI in 2018. But there are long-standing concerns about the cost and technical difficulty of building the line, and little concrete progress has been made since then. Chinese Foreign Ministry in a statement said the two sides will speed up the Kathmandu Ring Road Improvement Project Phase 2 at a faster pace and advance electric power interconnection projects. The two sides will strengthen the electric power cooperation plan and build the Trans-Himalayan multi-dimensional connectivity network. According to Nepal's embassy in Beijing, Wang also announced that Beijing would provide 800 million RMB $119 million to Nepal this year, and reassured Khadka that it would soon begin construction of the second phase of a project to improve the ring road in Kathmandu, which has been delayed almost 4 years due to labor disputes and technical difficulties. The two foreign ministers also agreed to promote further cooperation in areas such as trade, health, tourism, agriculture and poverty alleviation.
U.S. media reports that former President Donald Trump has declined to answer questions as part of a New York State investigation into his family's business practices. Mr. Trump had sued in an effort to block the interview at the New York Attorney General's office yesterday. State officials accused the Trump Organization of misleading authorities about the value of its assets in order to get favorable loans and tax breaks. Mr. Trump denies wrongdoing and has called the civil probe a witch hunt. In a statement, the former president criticized New York Attorney General Letitia James and the broader investigation. The Attorney General's office confirmed that the interview took place on Wednesday and Mr. Trump invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The deposition comes just days after the FBI executed an unprecedented search warrant at his Florida estate, Mar-a-Lago, as part of a separate investigation that is reportedly linked to his handling of classified material. Sierra Leone's Vice President Mohamed Julde Jallow has declared a nationwide curfew after anti-government protests turned violent. According to media reports, at least 2 police officers and a civilian were killed after a day of anti-government protests in capital Freetown. Protesters threw rocks and burned fires in the streets out of frustration at worsening economic hardship and other issues. The West African country has been struggling with rising inflation and a fuel crisis.
Palestinian ambassador to the UN Riyad Mansour has called Israel's bombardment of Gaza as unjustified aggression. He was speaking at the UN Security Council's emergency meeting in New York yesterday. After the conflict, which had killed nearly 44 Palestinians, including 15 children, Mr. Mansour asked the Council how many more children do they have to bury until someone will say enough. Several members, including the UN Middle East envoy Thor Bineslein, raised concern over a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian armed group Islamic Jihad. Ahead of the meeting, Israeli ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, called for the UNSC to place full accountability on Islamic Jihad. In a statement, Erdan termed it as a double war crime, accusing the Islamic Jihad of using Gazans as human shields. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, supported Israel's right to defend its people against terrorist threats. The State Bank of India (SBI) will manage the Indian Visa Application Centre (IVAC) in Bangladesh for 2 more years. The agreement to extend the operations for 2 more years was signed between the officials of the SBI and the High Commission of India in Dhaka on Wednesday. The IVAC will also be starting a few additional services soon, which include facilitation for online form filling and submission of form, slot booking, and launching of a mobile app. A priority launch was also inaugurated at the IVAC Centre in Dhaka. Currently, SBI runs a total of 15 IVACs across Bangladesh. The IVAC Centre at the Jamuna Future Park in Dhaka was opened in 2018. It is the largest Indian visa application centre. The first IVAC was started by SBI in 2005 in Dhaka.
Former Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who last month fled anti-government protests in his country, has left Singapore, immigration authorities there said on Thursday. A one-sentence announcement on the website of the Immigration and Checkpoints Authority did not provide his destination, but officials in Thailand on Wednesday said they had been asked by the Sri Lankan government to allow him entry and that he would be permitted to stay temporarily. Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha said he was aware of Rajapaksa's intended visit and that it was allowed for humanitarian reasons because the former president was seeking asylum in a third country. He did not elaborate. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson Tani Sangrat said Wednesday that Rajapaksa's stay is temporary in nature with the aim of onward travel. No political asylum has been sought. He declined to say Thursday whether the former president had arrived in Thailand. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has declared victory over COVID-19. North Korea's KCNA news agency reported that Mr. Kim ordered the lifting of maximum anti-epidemic measures imposed in May. It said that Mr. Kim has also asserted that North Korea must maintain a strong anti-epidemic barrier and intensifying the anti-epidemic work until the end of the global health crisis. The North Korean leader made his declaration in a speech yesterday at a meeting on COVID policy, with thousands of unmasked officials sitting indoors. According to KCNA, Kim's sister, Kim Yo-jong, also addressed the gathering and said the young leader himself had suffered from fever symptoms. Meanwhile, North Korea has never confirmed how many people caught with the COVID-19.
Now in today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on India and the quest for global peace led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In conversation are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Manas Pratim Bhuyan, journalist.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, we have seen the comments by Mexican President Obrador last week where he proposed setting up a UN panel to deal with various global challenges, particularly to deal with conflict situations. And he, according to Mexican media, said that Prime Minister Modi, Pope Francis, and UN Secretary General should be part of the panel to find solutions to various conflicts and to ensure that the world does not see any war. So how do you see the Mexican president's proposal and remarks reflecting his keenness to, have a kind of UN body to deal with various conflict situations?
This is very interesting and a very significant development, and it really speaks about the increasing prestige and the profile and the respect that both Prime Minister Modi and India have garnered in the world in recent years. It is befitting that the Mexican President Obrador, and Mexico, all of us know, is located thousands of kilometers from India, and India has very strong connections, very strong relations with our neighbors in our extended neighborhood, whether it is Central Asia, whether it is West Asia, or it is Southeast Asia. Interactions are very frequent. We meet very often. But as far as Mexico is concerned, it is far away. And I don't know, over the last 8 years that Prime Minister Modi has been in office, how often the two leaders have met. But that notwithstanding, I think the image and the profile of the Prime Minister is such, and what he has been able to do, what he has been able to contribute, not only as far as India is concerned, but I think as far as global issues are concerned, what are the global challenges and how India has handled them, how Prime Minister Modi has handled them. Just to give you an example of the climate change, I think in the past, India was always, had its back to the wall. And India was always being told to do more as far as dealing with the climate is concerned, protecting the environment and ecology is concerned. But now India has taken a leadership role as far as the existential threat of climate change is concerned. You'd recall that in 2015, when the Paris discussions were taking place, in December, India had launched the International Solar Alliance. And today we have more than 100 countries who are members. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, we have launched the CDRI, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure Initiative. And there also a large number of countries have joined. So rather than playing a victim and rather than proposing why certain things cannot be done, I think Prime Minister Modi has impressed the whole world. And this would include President Obrador of Mexico when he has suggested that a peace commission should be established because the world is facing so many challenges on the issue of conflict, war, totally unnecessary wars, unnecessary tensions. We've seen what is happening between Russia and Ukraine over the last more than 5 months. It's going to be about 6 months now, and there is so much of death and destruction and damage to the lives of ordinary people, men, women, children, the havoc is being wreaked. And also now we have seen more recently the sort of exercises, totally uncalled for muscle flexing and exercises by China as far as the Taiwan Straits issue is concerned. So there is so much of strife and tension in the world that we do need wise people who will propose, who will suggest counsel, good counsel, so that the tensions can be brought down. And in that context, I think this suggestion by the Mexican president is a very welcome initiative, and the inclusion of Prime Minister Modi is, of course, a recognition of the huge achievements and the large number of initiatives in diverse areas that he has taken to promote peace, security, stability, and prosperity in the world.
Basically, you have explained it very succinctly. The timing of the proposal is very interesting because it came in the backdrop of the Ukraine crisis, the evolving situation in the Gulf region, and what we have seen in the last few days in the Taiwan Straits, China's aggressive military posturing following Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. So how do you see the timing of the Mexican president's remark?
Yeah, I think that is very noteworthy. As you said very correctly, the Russia-Ukraine confrontation is a totally unnecessary, uncalled for confrontation. I think the whole world was really taken by surprise when on 24th of February, Russia launched this attack against Ukraine. And what again Russia and the world might have thought that after Russia had launched this attack, that it would be over in 8-10 days or maximum of 2 weeks. But this has been going on now for the last more than 5 months, as I said. And no end appears to be in sight. There is gradual progress in terms of taking over of territory by Russia. But the damage to the country and to the lives of the people is enormous. It is horrifying to see the images and the pictures on the television screens which we get to see every evening. Simultaneously, along with that, we see what is happening in East Asia on the issue of Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. And China has decided to escalate tensions. The United States has very categorically stated that the visit by the Speaker of the House of Representatives should be taken in the series of congressional visits to Taiwan that have been taking place for a long time. And also the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich, had visited Taiwan in 1997, 25 years ago. And at that time, there was not such a reaction and response from China. And it has also very clearly stated that its policy on Taiwan and on One China policy has not changed. So there was no cause, there was no reason for China to go all ballistic and violate Taiwan's air defense identification zone and carry out all these exercises and simulate attacks against Taiwan, when under the One China policy, it has itself stated that it will not use force to take over Taiwan. It has gone beyond that theater also and undertaken exercises in the Yellow Sea, in the Bohai Sea, on the coast in the territory near to South Korea. So that is quite ununderstandable. There is international law that has been violated because these are all global commons, these territorial waters. So there is so much of tension that is building up. In the case of Ukraine, we also know that Russia had even threatened the use of nuclear weapons, and that would be after 1945. That is about 77 years ago that this was done. So the world is standing at a very dangerous threshold. You've also mentioned West Asian theater, and there we see that since 2011, we have the conflict in Syria that has been going on, and between Israel and Hamas and now Islamic Jihad, there have been confrontation and conflict going on. So there is a lot of, as far as global leaders are concerned, that any accidental action by any party might lead to a much bigger confrontation. This is a very welcome move. It's a very timely move and would behove upon the UN Secretary General that he takes quick action so that we have a truce commission with Prime Minister Modi and with some other people, those who can lend their good skills at reaching out to people and to bringing down the tempers and promoting peace and stability in the world.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, we have seen India has also contributed significantly in the past few decades in various UN peacekeeping and peace-building missions across the world, across various conflict zones. India has also provided continuous support to various UN peacekeeping missions. How do you see India's overall contribution for UN peacekeeping missions across the world?
I think India is one country, Manas, which has been one of the largest, if not the largest contributor in terms of its contributions to peacekeeping and peace enforcing missions. This is definitely, as a responsible international player and a responsible international actor, to promote peace. I think India's credentials are very clear and are very well known. And I'm sure that must have definitely been one of the aspects that President Obrador would have kept in mind when he proposed that Prime Minister Modi should be a part of that 3-member commission that he has suggested. And that is one of the strongest arguments also for India's permanent membership of the UN Security Council, that it is such a large country. And it has never waged a war against anyone. It has always stood for peace. India is the land of Gautam Buddha and Mahatma Gandhi, who promoted non-violence and peace. And Prime Minister Modi also, you would recall, in his various speeches at the UN General Assembly, starting from his first address in September 2014, he has spoken about the Indian philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which really looks upon the whole world as a single family. And if it is a single family, then of course there can be no discrimination, there can be no inequality, there can be no hatred, there can be no war against other people. So I think India's credentials, and particularly Prime Minister Modi, the manner in which he has taken forward India's philosophy and India's ideology, I think that has made a mark on people across the world, and that is why we see from across the world we have the Mexican president who has made this very timely and very important, significant initiative he's taken. So I think in every area we are showing what India can do and what the whole world also needs to do to achieve peace and security and stability in the world.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving an overall perspective about the comments and the proposal by the Mexican president, as well as India's increasing role in confronting or to help the global community to confront various challenges. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
More than 1,000 firefighters are battling a monster wildfire in southwestern France that has already destroyed nearly 7,000 hectares of forest, officials say. The raging blaze near the city of Bordeaux has gutted a number of homes and forced 10,000 residents to flee. Strong winds and high temperatures are hampering the firefighting operation. President Emmanuel Macron announced that Austria, Germany, Greece, Poland and Romania are coming to aid as France in battling the blaze. Tamara Walcott, a female powerlifter from Maryland in the United States, broke, according to sources in the investigating agency, for the heaviest cumulative lift for bench, squat and press in competition female after lifting a total of 737.5 kg across the compound lifts, the squat, the bench press and the deadlift. Guinness World Records official site said in a release on Wednesday. She was honored at the 2022 World Raw Powerlifting Federation American Pro in Manassas, Virginia last month.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian says more than 100,000 people joined Don't Pay UK in protest against energy price rises. The Washington Post reports historians privately warn Biden that America's democracy is teetering. The Globe and Mail writes, armed man takes hostages at Meru Bank, demands release of frozen funds. The South China Morning Post says China's Belt and Road lending under more scrutiny after IMF tightens debt limits. The Financial Times reports US petrol prices fall below $4 a gallon in sign of lower inflation. And the Japan Times reports she lets missiles fall in Japan's EEZ during Taiwan drills.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Jagdeep Dhankar takes oath as Vice President of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi wishes him very best for fruitful tenure. UN Security Council to hold emergency meeting today on crisis at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear complex. India and Bangladesh review ongoing defense cooperation between the two countries. Mexican President proposes a three-man commission for world peace comprising Prime Minister Modi, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Pope Francis. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says U.S. cannot allow China to normalize a new level of pressure on Taiwan. China shields a Pakistan-based global terrorist from United Nations sanctions despite incontrovertible evidence. Tamara Walcott from United States broke Guinness World Records in lifting 737.5 kg in 3 stages. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan Vaishnavajan by artists from Chad on their Independence Day. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.